This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Lunch Show on Teachers Talk Radio with Graham Stanley. Today I'll be looking at artificial intelligence with a particular focus on differentiation and critical thinking, and with a returning guest, Angeles Suarez.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Sunday Lunch Show, everyone. As I mentioned, I'll be exploring how generative artificial intelligence can be used for differentiation and the need for critical thinking when using it, and with and for learners. To help me do so, I have a special guest who has been on my show once before, Angeles Suarez, a teacher joining me from Argentina. Now, I talked about Gen AI and differentiation at the end of last week's show, and spoke about how best to use AI when we spoke about how best to use AI for inclusive learning. But on today's show with Maria, we'll go into more depth and find out ways she puts this into practice in her classroom, which I'm sure will be useful to any teachers interested in this subject. Maria is an English and ICT teacher from Buenos Aires in Argentina. She has been teaching English as a foreign language at primary and secondary school for 20 years and has a degree in educational technology. As she became more familiar with EdTech, she became a Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert in 2015 and a Skype Master Teacher in 2017. And her project Around the World in a Sway, Tales of Skype and Classroom Adventures was one of the projects selected by Microsoft Argentina to represent the country in an exchange. Maria considers herself a lifelong learner with a passion for technology applied to English language teaching. Her main passion is using ICT in the classroom to enhance learning opportunities and being able to inspire others to embrace technology. And I will be talking to Maria about using technology to help to help with differentiation after the Teachers Talk Radio news.
Need a smarter way to teach? Wish your lessons had more impact? Eduflix.com. Stream educational films for teachers and students in or out of the classroom. Keep students engaged. No ads, no distractions. Try it free for 30 days at eduflix.com/try. Use code TTR. Get 50% off all orders made before June 1st. Eduflix.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Harvard University is reportedly suing the Trump administration after it revoked the university's ability to enrol international students. The dispute, reported on the BBC News website, has escalated to what the university has called a blatant violation of the law by Trump's government. The lawsuit, filed in Boston, comes a day after officials at the Department of Homeland Security said it would be revoking Harvard's access to students' visa programs. The Trump administration says Harvard has not done enough to fight anti-Semitism and change its hiring and admissions practices. The university has strongly denied these allegations. According to the BBC, there are around 6,800 international students at Harvard, more than 27% of the year's enrolments. The university is asking for a court order to halt the move by Department for Homeland Security, and the Harvard president said, "We condemn this unlawful and unwarranted action." In response, a White House press secretary said, "If only Harvard cared this much about ending the scourge of anti-American, anti-Semitic, pro-terrorist agitators, they wouldn't be in this situation." Further details and updates on the story can be found on BBC News. Schools Week covers the latest announcement on teachers' pay in England. Teachers will get a 4% pay rise next year after the government accepted the review body's recommendation with additional funding of £615 million coming to schools. However, government has said schools will still have to fund around 1/4 of the rise themselves, which equates to finding £400 million from school budgets. And this comes on top of savings they have already budgeted for. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson said the pay award, backed by major investment, recognises the crucial role teachers play in breaking the link between background and success. Union said that they were still concerned about whether schools could afford to make more savings. Further details and union responses can be found on the Schools Week News website. Universities in England have been told to increase efforts to prevent student suicides in a review commissioned by the Department for Education. The BBC Education's news site covers details of the report, which says universities should assess the safety of student halls and involve families more after a student has died. Its recommendations, the first to ever be issued to university leaders by a UK government, include discouraging the laying of flowers where a student has died, if it could draw attention to a suicide location. The National Review of Higher Education Suicide Deaths of Students examined 169 cases of suicide and serious self-harm, reported by 73 universities in 2023 to 24. Overall, 19 recommendations were made, including improving support for those struggling academically and reviewing access to mental health services. The Department for Education is due to meet with university leaders to discuss the findings later this month. Finally, The Guardian reports that almost half of young people would prefer a world without internet, according to a UK study. The research shows that nearly 70% of 16 to 21-year-olds feel worse about themselves after spending time on social media. Half would support a digital curfew that would restrict access to apps and sites past 10 p.m, and 46% said they would rather be young in a world without the internet altogether. The study, conducted by the British Standards Institution, surveyed 1,293 young people. Full details of the article and more of the findings can be found on the Guardian newspaper's website. This has been Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
So welcome back, everybody. I am very happy to have with me today Maria de los Angeles Suarez, or Angie.
Yes.
Angie,
yes.
How are you today?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be talking to you today. So thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for returning to my Teachers Talk Radio show. What has been happening in the last year since we last spoke?
Well, nothing much. Artificial intelligence has taken over, so we're trying to adapt it to our classes and trying to benefit from it. All right, taking it into practice.
Is AI something that you use on a regular basis as a teacher now?
Not on a regular basis, but I'm starting to use it to adapt material, to differentiate in order to cater for all students' need. Whenever I have to adapt material to cater to those needs.
Yes, this is one of the really interesting things, one of the really positive things about using AI in education, isn't it? You can use a lot of these tools to differentiate. And as this is the main subject for today's talk, I'd love to hear more about how you discovered this and how you approach doing that.
Well, I use a variety of artificial intelligence tools, and I try to follow certain strategies to meet the needs of my diverse group of students. Sometimes I have those students who are struggling or falling behind, and differentiated needs to be done. So I try to follow some sort of strategies as regards differentiation, and technology comes to play in those moments.
What kind of needs do your students have, for example, that requires differentiation? Are you talking about special educational needs, or is it just that some of your students need more support than others because of they have difficulty with the actual content?
Of course, as well, as we learned English as a foreign language, some of them are struggling with reading. Some of them have been diagnosed with dyslexia, so adapting material has become quite an issue in the classroom, something that needs to be focused on, and something that needs to be done every single day.
Right. So with students who have dyslexia, how can technology, AI or whatever, help them? And how do you go about trying to provide additional support for them using technology?
For instance, if I have to differentiate by content, I need to adjust what students learned based on their learning profile, on their needs. And some of the strategies used artificial intelligence for instance, adapting reading materials, okay, and sometimes even using some apps in which my students can listen to the text, okay, turning any text into an audiobook. Nowadays you have that possibility with Microsoft tools, and it's amazing because it provides some scaffolding to those who need that, who get lost. Some students get lost when reading, some students need some extra help, and providing apps which help them to listen to the text, not only read, is a great help. And also, for instance, nowadays with the creation of visuals in a very strategic way using artificial intelligence, for instance, whenever you have to create material, that's a great help for teachers. For instance, technology offers me a great choice whenever I want to create choice boards with several activities on one topic in order to introduce some variety and varying the complexity of each reading task. So each student will be focusing on the text which appeal to them. Some of them are more difficult, more challenging, and some kids will focus on them, but not all of them. So I will provide a variety of text within different complexity. And also, of course, the use of technology to pre-teach vocabulary or concepts that students may need some support. For instance, thinking about writing, okay, meaning adjusting how students engage with the material, differentiating by the outcome. Something that comes to play a lot nowadays is Canva, because it provides an amazing and incredible array of possibilities for material creation. Students can become content creators, and that's great because some students may be creating a poster because that's what they understand, and they can focus, they can summarize, and some others feel more confident by creating by creating, for instance, a video on a concept or on a topic. And Canva gives, it is a free tool for teachers that gives an open possibility for the classroom that every student is going to be working on their own level, okay, without being forced onto something they will be feeling uncomfortable with.
Right. It sounds like there's a lot of things, a lot of activities happening within your classroom. I'm assuming all of this is happening in the classroom, is it? How do
Yes,
you
I'm speaking
manage
from
this?
experience.
Okay. How do you manage this differentiation going on at the same time? For example, if you have a reading text, presumably it's from a book, a textbook. How do you manage that the students who want to listen to that text can listen to the text at the same time that students are reading? Does all of this happen within the classroom space, or do you have you adopted a flipped classroom approach and you ask students to do things before they come to class?
No, I have adapted some key elements of flipped classroom approach. For instance, I use a puzzle in order to give students some topics beforehand for them to work at home. And the good thing about that app, which can also be used for free, is that you can keep track on what your students do when they are not with you, when they are at home. And that's amazing because you get charts with all their productions. If they stop watching a video, you get to see where they stopped. And for instance, that's a tool I used in order to flip my classroom and to keep track of what is going on whenever my students are watching a video, and I'm asking them questions in order to check comprehension. So that's a tool I used a lot, and I would recommend, which is called Edpuzzle. Something else.
Ed Parcel.
Edpuzzle, yes.
EDPARCEL?
Yes,
Okay.
Edpuzzle, yes. It's amazing, and it has a yellow logo, and it allows you to, because whenever you give students a video, they may watch it or not. Well, this tool allows you to get a video from YouTube or to upload it and to create questions, comprehension questions, multiple choice or open-ended questions, and in order to check comprehension, and you get to see how your students perform. That's the amazing part. You're not there, but you keep track of their performance. Something else.
It will,
Yes.
this sounds really interesting. So it will allow you to look at how many times, it will allow you to see how many times students watched a particular video, where they stopped, where they paused, where they watched again, stuff like that. It gives you quite a lot of
whether they gave
data.
up. Yes, of course. And you keep track of the questions. So for instance, if one of the questions was difficult and they were struggling with it and they gave up, you get to see that. That's amazing. And you get to see what's going on when you are not there. I love it so much. And in my class, I work with computers all the time because my class is called Multimedia Lab. My students come to my class to go deeper into the topics they're working with their classroom teachers, but through technology. And one of the things I love is to use, for instance, Get Epic to read books, or my own. Both are digital libraries, my own and Get Epic. Get Epic can be used.
How do you spell Mayon? Yeah.
MYON.
Okay. And these are tools that are digital libraries, you said?
Yes, Get Epic is a digital library which can be used for free since 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Because those are the school hours in the state. It is an American platform, and you get to see, you have tons of audiobooks and read to me books. Those are books the students, they have the shape of the real book, because you can go to Amazon and buy the same book. You get to see the book and you get to listen to it, and students love that. because first of all, they work at their own pace. They can stop, they can go back, and they love it. Get Epic is for free. My own, you have to subscribe. The school has to subscribe. I have used it for a long time, and students enjoy it a lot. And it's a great opportunity for reading practice and listening practice, as we are English teacher. And of course, I'm not in an English country. I'm in Argentina, and we have to provide a situation in which the language is spoken in the classroom. We have to create that situation, and these platforms are great, and they contain lots of authentic materials, which of course, as I mentioned before, if you want, you can buy those books. They are great, and I combine this a lot with Canva, because students they create charts about the stories in case they are reading fiction. They create presentations, videos on the stories. They develop their English skills, the language, and also they improve their technology literacy. Everything comes at the same time, and one scaffolds the other.
Wonderful. So it sounds like not only is it differentiation through technology, but you're really encouraging a lot of learner autonomy. I'm guessing they choose the books they want to read, a lot of extensive reading. Is that the case?
Yes, because these platforms allow you to to select an array of materials containing on the same topic with different levels. So each student will be focusing on the material that appeals to them, the material they can understand. If students open a book which tends to be a bit difficult for them, they close it and they open another one that they understand and they feel more comfortable with. And that's the idea, providing choice. These platforms have plenty of books on each topic, so you can, whenever you want to read on a selected topic, either fiction or not fiction, you can have choice. You give students choice, and that choice implies differentiating, because everyone is open to read whatever they feel comfortable with within a choice given by the teacher.
Right. And I'm guessing that you monitor this. So I would guess there'll be cases where some students, not all of them, I'm saying, but there'll be some students who don't particularly want to do a lot of work. Maybe they're looking for an easy way out. Is that the case? And how do you deal with that kind of attitude?
Of course, yes. Some kids love going back to books that they read when they were very young. That truly happens in the classroom. And of course, it's a question of talking and telling them to focus perhaps on something more challenging to them. But it happens a lot that some of them tend to go to favorite characters or favorite books that they have read when they were younger, and they want to stick to that. They want to stay in the comfort zone. It truly happens. But these platforms also, as I mentioned before, with that puzzle, allow you to keep track on a student's performance, on how much they read every single class. So by keeping track, you can, of course, you're there in the class and you're watching what they do, but also from the computer, you can keep track on what they do. Of course, when you are in the class, you always have to focus on that and tell them. The same happens when you are in a real library. Okay, that some of them tend to look for books they feel comfortable with instead of trying to challenge themselves. That's where the role of the teacher comes to play.
Yeah, and it sounds like the role that you play often within this type of class is one of facilitating and guiding the students rather than explicitly teaching them. Is that the case?
Of course, it has to be with teaching, because they need to learn to work on these tools. They need the language to understand, but also guiding them towards the material. Of course, you're right.
And what you mentioned before was that you encourage the students to create a presentation, a book report, or using Canva, etc. And so they're taking on the book almost like a project. And would you then ask them to present something to the other students to talk about what they have read, etc.?
Yes, yes. At the end of each project, they have to present what the product they have created, either a poster, a video, or even a website. They love that. They love sharing what they have done. That's interesting too. It's like the end, the outcome of the whole project.
Fantastic. And from start to finish, Angie, how long does this type of activity take for the students to do?
I see each group once a week, so it's going to take almost a month, 4 or 5 classes, because first they get in contact with the material. For instance, they can get a folder with fairy tales and even different versions of each fairy tale. They will read the material, and for instance the task will be, imagine you have to create a presentation or a video of your favorite fairy tale, but you have to adapt it for younger kids. For instance, they are in grade 6 and they have to adapt the fairy tale as if they have to tell it to kids who are much younger, who are grade 2. And that may be one of the tasks. They read the material, they go through different fairy tales until they find the one they are looking for, even different versions of the same fairy tale.
Right. You say fairy tales, so is it generally fairy tales that you use with the students, or is it other type of books as well?
No, of course, we work with fiction. They love comics. One thing I discovered through these platforms, reading platforms, the digital libraries, that they have a wonderful array of comics. And we also create comics and read comics, and we have different formats. We work with nonfiction. We work with topics that are, for instance, cyberbullying. We read about lots of things. Fairy tales are something to start with, and some common ground they feel comfortable with.
Okay. How does AI fit into this type of activity, or would that be something else?
Yes, I have introduced AI with Canva because I have tried many apps, but I didn't feel they were safe enough for my students. With Canva, in case we're working with a project about a book or about something else, the students create images. They have to provide the description, the detailed description, and they create images with Canva to include in their productions. That's how I integrate artificial intelligence in the class. I have tried many apps, but the outcomes I got, the pictures I got, I didn't feel they were appropriate for primary school, and I stuck to Canva in that case, but because I have tried different words that perhaps different outcomes that I didn't feel comfortable with, so I stayed with this tool.
And how old are the students that you do these activities with?
Oh, they are 11, 12, and 13.
Right.
The,
And
the oldest I have.
how have they reacted to being introduced to AI? Is it
They
something that
like it. They
right?
enjoy it. They get crazy. They want to continue using it, and also I've seen that they keep on using it in other activities in order to illustrate what they do. And the funny thing about using Canva and teaching all kids all these tech tools is that I get parents writing to me saying thank you, that they see that they know a lot about computers, and that the students are helping parents with real life tasks. For instance, they have to create materials for their companies, for their hobbies. I was told once there was a father who, as a hobby, was a magician, and the child, the 12-year-old child, was managing all the social media productions for the father, all the leaflets, all the the pictures for Instagram, okay, and that's a positive feedback I get. Student helping families with real tasks using these tools, because we are using in the classroom tools that people use in companies, people use in their jobs. So that's the positive thing.
Yeah, I really think that's amazing. This link that you have with school and back to the parents and to the real world, I think is one of the real reasons why, using these tools is a good idea. That you have that real practical use, and the fact that the students are actually introducing their parents to these tools and the parents are learning as well is a great positive cycle, isn't it?
Of course it is, yes. It's a way to connect, taking the school to the class, students telling parents what they do in class, finding that it is useful in the real life. And I even get, as once I talked to girls from high school, they were my students almost 3 or 4 years ago, and they tell me that they are still using Canva, and that what they started learning with me in primary school is still useful. And of course, they keep on developing that and going deeper into the app. But it's nice to see that what started in my classes is moving forward and improving, and it is still useful. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I imagine it's a great positive feedback loop that you're getting there with the students. What about other teachers you work with? Do you find that most of them have responded well to this explosion of generative AI tools and are using them, or are there teachers that you work with that are more wary and they're not very happy with it? A lot of teachers, for example, we know, complain that these AI tools are causing students to kind of cut corners and not actually do the work, that they're just using the AI tools to produce things. What's your experience of that?
Well, teachers are using AI a lot to create content, to adapt content, to create activities, to decorate those activities with pictures created with artificial intelligence. But there's a key point that it's coming now, and it's becoming a problem, is when students create, whenever students asks for homework, and the kid comes with something that has been truly created by artificial intelligence. And the thing is that in the language classroom, to develop writing, it's a huge and complicated process that takes years, and it goes little by little and improves little by little. And I think that most writing classes focus on the process, and they give students lots of homework in order to keep that process going, and giving students opportunities to practice more. And artificial intelligence just provides the perfect outcome. So that's something we are still working on, and we need to develop new tasks, new activities for students to integrate these new artificial technologies, but also in a meaningful way. I think we teachers have a lot to learn in that aspect. But the thing is that in the field of English language teaching, we have something that it's preset, and writing has been developed through working, through practice, and it's difficult to change that and to find new ways to incorporate these new technologies, because the writing process is something that goes on in the brain, takes a long time, and it is different in each student. And it's not related to getting a perfect outcome, a perfect writing at the end. It focuses on the process, on improving thoughts and in organizing ideas. And we as teachers have to find new strategies in order to incorporate these technologies to help students think, to develop their writing skills. Because, of course, they turn on the computer and they ask the tool and they get a perfect writing, a perfect report, a perfect essay. But then they have to sit for exams. So the process has not been done if they get the perfect writing with artificial intelligence. So that's a topic why we are thinking a lot about, and we are trying to read and to find new strategies, because this is new. It started last year.
Need a smarter way to teach? Wish your lessons had more impact? Eduflix.com. Stream educational films for teachers and students in or out of the classroom. Keep students engaged. No ads, no distractions. Try it free for 30 days at eduflix.com/try. Use code TTR. Get 50% off all orders made before June 1st. Eduflix.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order.
I think you've hit upon it, haven't you? A lot of what we think about writing in society is the finished product, a product approach. We're used to reading writing that has been polished and finished and presented to us in its sort of ultimate form. But the benefit of writing is really, for an individual, I think, is not that necessarily everything you write will be a finished product, a report, a letter, an email, etc. But a lot of the benefit of writing, I think, is through the process of it. Writing something down helps you think. Taking notes is a skill that helps you crystallize how you think about a particular subject. Brainstorming through writing gets things on the page that you can then, it will help you develop ideas and concepts and stuff. And it's that move away from writing as a product to writing as a process, which is where the students can really benefit from. And if they're just missing out on that, if they're using AI tools just to create the finished product, then they're going to miss out on a lot of these thinking skills that are developed through writing. What do you think about that?
Yes, I agree with you, because for us, what we care about is the process, developing those thinking skills through different strategies, brainstorming, creating graphics, note-taking, summarizing. And that is important because it helps you to understand the world, to understand everything that goes on. In order to get to a perfect writing for a first certificate level, for instance, there is a lot of work, even 4 years of work beforehand of different teachers, providing different strategies to each student to develop vocabulary, to develop grammar, to develop everything needed so as to acquire the foreign language. And of course, these tools are amazing for a person that needs a lot of writing work to be done for a company, for social media. But for school, we need to learn how to use it in a positive way, because we, as you said, we focus on process, on thinking process, okay? And of course, we grade the outcome, we grade the writings, but it's not what we care about. We care about how to develop the thinking process, how to improve it year after year. And of course, I'm learning a lot. I'm reading, I'm watching webinars about artificial technologies in order to get new ideas, to learn more, and to find a way in which students can use it in a meaningful way for their practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you said something that was quite interesting. You said in order to reach a first certificate level or whatever. I think one of the things that I think teachers need to move away from, if they have that, or teachers, schools, organizations, students as well, we need to change that mindset away from the idea of I'm doing this to get a particular level of English in an exam oriented or finished product thing. I know it's difficult because we do need assessment. We do need to be able to evaluate progress, etc., to be able to benchmark, and it's what a lot of students actually do need. A lot of parents are put pressure on schools and teachers to show that something has been achieved. But really, it's what comes before that finished product or finished exam, isn't it? That is so important. The idea is that we want these students not to have obtained a certificate or an exam mark, but we want these students to have obtained a knowledge, the skill, the skills of writing, for example, in this case, to be able to have demonstrated that this is something that they can do. That idea of the can-do statements, I think, helps with that, because I think ultimately, if these students are not doing that and they're just leaving school without that ability, then when they go to the world of work, a lot of the employers in the future will just say, well, if you can't think and do the kind of things that I need you to do, then I can just replace you with AI.
Yes, that's true. Yes, I fully agree. Yes, those are through that process, lots of skills are developed, and they are lifelong skills that students will be needing throughout their lives. So that's what we focus. Problem solving, communicating, and if you're given something perfect that comes in seconds from a computer, is not helping you to develop those skills or to go through a process and improve little by little.
Yeah. If not, I can imagine a situation where, someone from this AI generation or whatever it's going to be called, because I'm sure it's going to affect the generation in ways that we haven't envisaged yet, will go into a meeting and be asked something about a particular subject or topic with the idea of trying to think things through and talk things out, and they either will not be able to do that, or the attitude they may have is like, why you're asking this? Let's just go on, get one of the large language models to produce an output, and they can answer it for us. We don't need to do this.
We do not need to be
envisage a
there.
time when that happens.
Yes. It provides a lot of questions that have no answer yet. We have to be open, but we need to ask questions and try to integrate it in the most positive way. But the thing is that also when artificial intelligence knows a lot, it's a learning system. But whenever you go deep into topics that are related to specific small culture or country or activity, it knows nothing. And instead of telling you, I don't know about it, they just answer in a way that looks precise, that looks complete, but invents the answers. And that's called hallucinations. And it's very funny. Whenever I was carrying out a workshop with teachers from different subjects, and there was a tango teacher. Here in Argentina, tango is our most famous dance, and it's part of history. We have very famous singers throughout history, and he was asking questions to the artificial intelligence tool about tango, and it was the artificial tool was providing convincing text, which in fact were invented. They were not factual. That's the problem too, that we have to let students know, because if you're asking for a topic that it's known worldwide, the tool will give you a correct answer in most of the cases. But whenever you go deeper into topics that are culture-based, the answer is not going to be perfect. You have to go to other sources to check on that.
Yeah. This is what I'm worried about. This hallucination aspect of large language models, what they end up doing is potentially very dangerous. Not only is it dangerous because well, there's several aspects to it, I think. One is the large language models are producing texts, information that are either being potentially published on the internet, etc., and then they could start to take on a life of their own as sources. So all of these kind of invented fake news or fake history, etc., could actually be out there and start taking on a kind of life as a real thing. But also, I worry that some teachers who want very quickly texts or maybe producing them with these LLMs are not checking on the veracity of the information in them, which means that students are learning things that are not true.
Yes, that's a risk, of course. And adults, I think we have more tools to check, to double check, to go to safe sites, to go to sites that contain official information. But kids are truly at risk there because they don't really know about everything. And we have to teach them to be skeptical, to doubt, to check. And for instance, as I told you before, I use it to adapt material, but I'm feeding the tool with the text, which is taken from a safe source. Because if I ask the tool to write about medieval history, I don't feel safe. It may make mistakes. I prefer to take the information from a book or from a website that I know contains historical based facts.
Yeah, I think if you're someone who knows a lot about that domain, so if you know a lot about medieval history, then using the LLM to actually produce a text that you can check, that you know you can you understand what in the text is true or not, is fine. It will save you time, which is the big reason why I think teachers will start to use or starting to use these tools. They realize that not only can these tools save them a lot of time in producing things like texts that are very targeted towards their particular students, but also you can differentiate, as we said, with different texts. You can create different versions of it very easily to shorter, longer, to adapt to individual students, etc. So the temptation to use them is very, very strong, I think, and I don't blame any teacher from using it, using them, or anyone really, because it's such a time saver. But there is that big danger, is that you need to look at the text critically, and either, if you don't know the subject that the text is about, to actually be able to look it up and check things to make sure that they're true, which takes more time. So I think the tendency the temptation to skip that is there. Or if it's on a subject that you know, then I think you are able to revise it and change anything that looks a bit odd.
Yes, I agree fully with you. Yes, and that's some skill that needs to be taught. We need to teach students to be critical as regards anything they get from this tool, and also to be critical on what they see or read online, because we face fake news every single day, and also fake pictures. Nowadays, you need to be skeptical about pictures.
I think it becomes, this idea of critical literacy is becoming more and more fundamental for us to understand how to be able to interrogate what we see, what we read, what we hear, etc., because a lot of it may not well be true. And I think any teacher now, whatever subject they teach, this is affecting everyone, needs to be able to bring that to the classroom, I think.
Yes, that's something that needs to come to the classroom, dealing with fake news, fake pictures, how to identify fake pictures, because even fake videos nowadays, that's something that needs to come to the class and needs to be discussed, to give students strategies, skills in order to stop and think and have questions and have the ability to search for more information. That's something that it's truly a problem, because not everything you see online is true, and you have lots of things that are scams that want to steal your information, steal your money. They need to be prepared on that.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. On a lot of social media sites, I see these videos posted that are obviously not true. There's a series of them, I don't know if you've come across them, Angie, of people with animals acting, and they look very photorealistic, very visually, they're videos, they look kind of realistic. If you look carefully, you can see that you can still see that they're not real and that they're AI generated, but they're often, tigers hugging people and or people rescuing seals or whales and stuff like that. It's usually person to animal interaction in a way that attracts the attention, because you think, wow, that's amazing. Is that real? And obviously it isn't. And anyone who's looking critically at it or thinking this didn't happen, it would be obvious to them. But then if you look in the comments, there is still a substantial portion of people commenting who are still quite naive about this type of content, that they take it at face value. And you can see that, and you see other people trying to tell them you can't trust this. This is, think about it. This did not happen.
Yes,
I don't know if you've come across that.
I haven't seen those, but I've seen some videos with historical figures that are together in different situations, which of course are totally opposed to the true history. And that's scary, because it provides people with something which is not real, which is not history based. That's scary. And that there's a lot of fake information, fake pictures, which are not helping education, because they are like a setback, because you need to be alert, you need to develop those skills, and you still have people who tend to be naive to understand the truth. Okay, even I learned today that there was a scam in which they took money from a lady with a video, with an artificial intelligence created video of George Clooney asking her for money. And that's scary, and that is happening. And that's something that at school we need to give students the tool to be critical every single moment, and not to be involved in those types of things, to be really critical.
Yeah. And what you've just said is so important. It's not just at school. I mean, obviously, as teachers, that's where we need to focus, where we can make a difference to be able to educate and bring in critical literacy skills there. But there are so many adults now, in particular adults who haven't kept up with changes in technology, that are having to kind of try to catch up now, because quite often they didn't foresee it, I suppose, but quite often there are so many things in our life now that you can't do if you don't know how to operate technology. And more this is becoming the case with cashless shops, where without anyone to help you take the money, etc., you need to actually do it yourself. Ordering in restaurants, where you need to pay online, and there's all of this kind of receiving emails about payments, about deliveries, phone calls that are kind of, and I think there's a world where a lot of adults now feel a little bit out of their depth, and they're not quite sure who to trust or who what they can believe. What in the past it was always, if they received something that looked official, they would pay attention to it. But now you have to be critical with almost everything that you receive.
You have to be critical with a mail you have received, which cannot be from your bank, which can be just phishing, trying to get your account information. That's true.
Yeah.
And I think the school helps in a way there, because all the kids we face every day, we work with every day, will take all those critical ideas we share, all those skills home, and they are going to help parents, grandparents in a way. But
Mm.
I fully agree with you that there is a portion of a society at risk, because everything that comes to play nowadays goes through a computer, goes through a smartphone, and we need to be critical. We need to alert that some things you can click, some clickbaits are there just to steal your information, steal your money. So that's something that needs to be done. And there are some programs here, even in my city, in which they make groups of ladies, of some other people who are willing to learn about technology now, every single day technology, how to use a smartphone, how to use different tasks which are needed. And that's important, and that's not formal education, but it is helping them.
Yeah, that idea of non-formal education. I really think that we're in a critical moment now, actually. Every day, every week, you see these people making statements or articles about the jobs that AI will replace, etc., within 5-10 years. These are the jobs that are less likely to, that AI is less likely to replace. These are the ones that it will replace. And I think a lot of what happens is pretty much in our hands at the moment. So it's up to us. So and I think teachers have a very large responsibility for the way that things are going to turn out. So if we're producing, if you like, students who are over reliant upon AI, who we don't equip with the thinking skills that we talked about before, that they develop through, process writing, etc. If we're producing students, if they're leaving education and they have got away with relying upon AI to produce everything that they need, and they've got high marks, etc., then that's going to be a dangerous situation, and they're more likely, we're more likely to be replacing ourselves, I think, with AI than if that isn't the case. If we're able to take this moment and make use of these tools to help us and to work with them, and this idea of use AI but always have the human involved in whatever you do with AI. The human is always there. You can't just use AI and present that in whatever you're doing. It always needs to have human interference or in interaction. I don't know what you think about that.
No, I agree with you. That's the crucial role of the school, of helping students to develop critical thinking, to be alert, to give them tools to identify fake news, fake pictures, fake videos. That's the role of the school, and and that the human touch is needed whenever artificial intelligence is used, that they need to check facts, either using a book or going to an encyclopedia online. That is a skill that needs to be taught. And those who do not master those critical thinking skills are going to be at risk in the future. Because you can't be naive, believing everything that goes online. And because you can get hurt, you can be scammed, I think those are the skills needed nowadays, and we have to teach students in a way that they will be safe whenever they go out into the world. They have skills, they can survive, and they without struggling, and to be to be okay in that new environment.
Yeah, definitely. So, Angie, what
Yes.
else would you like to talk about in the remaining time that we have? I think I would like to hear from you a little bit about how your personal journey has been in as a teacher integrating technology. I think we've talked about this the last time we spoke, but if there's anything you can say about how you found the journey in doing that, that might help some of the other teachers out there who perhaps aren't as fluent with technology as you are. How would you suggest they go about it?
Well, as teachers, we need to be lifelong learners. We need to be open to investigate, to explore whatever new apps and things come up online. We need to be open to explore them, and whenever we discover they can be useful, they can provide real life situations to students in the classroom. We have to teach them how to use them, and I think we have to explore everything that goes on and be critical, and find new apps that can be motivating for students, because the truth is that whatever is a real life task or a real life app is going to help your class to motivate them, because when kids discover that something can be used in real life, they are going to enjoy using it. They are going to be paying more attention to it. For instance, as I was telling you with Canva, that they some of them teach their parents how to use it, and they use it in a real life scenario. Well, I think that provides motivation. As teachers, we need to be open. We need to be online, learning from others. And something very positive about technology is that it connects people. It allows you to learn from people who are in different countries, that you don't depend on a book, not only books, but you can get webinars, get videos with very important personalities in the field of teaching, in the field of writing, and you, through those videos, you can read, you can get lots of new ideas, and you can get updated. Okay, you don't depend just on a book. You can get lots of ideas. For instance, look at this. I'm from Argentina. You are in Mexico, you told me, and we're learning from each other, and we're profiting from this talk. And I hope the ones listening to us will profit from our conversation too.
Yes, no, it's very, very good advice. I think for me, I know it's a lot of teachers feel overwhelmed by this. And whenever you have something like this happen, like the explosion of generative AI, I think that's a natural reaction. But I think, as I mentioned before, I think it's important for all of us, not just as teachers, as educators, but as citizens, as people who live in this world, to be able to keep up to some extent with changes that are happening, like technology, because as I mentioned before, if you don't, then you can be left behind. You don't know how these things are going to affect us in 5 years' time, for example. And I always remember when things such as mobile phones appeared, there were a lot of adults at the time that they appeared that they decided to embrace them and started using them, in which case they incorporated them into their lives. And they have, there were people now who are well advanced in age who have no problem using smartphones, etc. There are other people, however, who decided not to have a mobile phone, not to embrace that technology. And then it gets to the point where everyone has one. And if they don't have one, then they're kind of missing out on communicating with certain people. For example, in their family. I know of situations where, not being able to use a mobile phone on these people are not able to really have a communication channel with nephews or nieces or in that way. And so you don't really know, I think, we don't know at the moment what this means in 5 years' time, but it will mean something. It will change things profoundly in ways that we can't even imagine now. And if you are able to kind of get a grip on it now and understand what it is, then you'll have a much easier time in 5 years' time when this major sea change happens. The same is true of, if you look at booking holidays online, booking flights, reserving hotels and stuff through the internet, through computer. I know of someone, a friend of a friend, who never got a computer, never really decided to get the internet, etc. And now she has great problems to be able to travel.
Yes, the gap is huge in those cases because
Yeah.
if you don't keep up with all the changes, and the truth is that everything goes on through a smartphone or through a computer. Yes, I make
Yeah.
an effort to keep my mom updating, to convince her to pay her bills online, and luckily she pays attention to me. She follows. She uses WhatsApp for communication with me, with friends, with
That's great.
family. But I see that some of her friends are struggling because they tend to stay in the physical world, but some things are going on online, and they help a lot if you mastered all those things.
Yeah.
And it's truly important to keep updated as
Yeah.
teachers, as global citizens, to be critic, because not everything is perfect, not everything is
Yeah.
what it appears to be, but we need to be there, and we need to be connected, and we need to profit from all those opportunities to get today, to listen to podcast videos, to connect with experts that
Yeah.
it was impossible long ago, because you could only when I started the teacher training college, your only connection with an expert in England was to read a book. And nowadays, you can read the book, and then you can even ask a question in Twitter to this person, and you can share an interaction. So everything has changed, and we need to be there. We need to be open, and we need to be critic.
Yeah, definitely. So, Angie, I'm going to draw things to a close now. I want to thank you so much for coming back on the show, and I've really enjoyed talking about what you're doing with your students in particular, and this idea of how you're integrating AI into your lessons and how you're equipping the students to be able to critically use it, I think is wonderful.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure to share ideas about teaching, about life, and about what it's like to be a citizen in this global world.
Need a smarter way to teach? Wish your lessons had more impact? Eduflix.com. Stream educational films for teachers and students in or out of the classroom. Keep students engaged. No ads. No distractions. Try it free for 30 days at eduflix.com/try. Use code TTR. Get 50% off all orders made before June 1st. Eduflix.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order.
Welcome back, everyone. So, when preparing for the show, I came across a very interesting, relevant blog post by John Dolman, whose blog is called The AI English Teacher. The post was entitled Practical AI in the Classroom, Mastering Differentiation with AI Tools Without Losing Your Teaching Soul. And the post starts by presenting a suggestion that the sweet spot of artificial intelligence enhanced differentiation lies when a teacher uses her expertise and combines it critically with AI powered tools, leading to something John calls amplified differentiation. So, as with other uses of Gen AI, it isn't about replacing the teacher or the expertise of the teacher. It's about leveraging Gen AI to amplify the effect. And John goes on to talk about one of the major criticisms of using Gen AI, that large language models produce very bland, middle of the road outputs that seem to be a mishmash of what is most commonly found online. And if you use Gen AI for lesson planning, then most likely the large language model will produce a traditional teacher focused plan rather than a learner centered or innovative one. And he calls them average making machines, which I think is an interesting way of looking at these tools. John, in his blog post, then goes on to say, however, that using large language models for text differentiation is where you can really make a difference. And he mentions that although there are purpose made solutions now, such as Diffit, you can achieve excellent results with general LLMs such as ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. Using these tools requires some thought, however, and he recommends a 4-stage workflow, which starts with supplying the text and providing detailed background information to guide the LLM. Then, after defining the boundaries to guide the LLM through the simplification process and specifying what format and features you want the output to have, you can get the large language model to create multiple versions of the text for your learners. If you're interested in knowing more, I recommend you check out the actual blog post, as he provides a template with the prompts he's developed to get the outputs. John, the AI English teacher, argues that rather than using Gen AI as a lazy way of producing output, this activity actually requires more pedagogical thinking, not less, because it forces you to think what differentiation means in your particular context and to exercise your professional judgment more carefully as a result. This I found particularly interesting because there is this lazy way of using Gen AI that leads teachers down the path of just offloading everything to the AI tool, leading to a negative loop, which I think is probably the worst use of AI that we want to avoid, I think, as teachers. So the negative loop in education refers to the unintended consequences that arise when AI is implemented without careful consideration of its potential drawbacks. These drawbacks can include bias, reduced human interaction, over-reliance on technology, and potential errors, which can ultimately hinder learning and fairness in educational outcomes. So, for instance, when it comes to bias and inequality, the problem is that AI algorithms are trained on data, and if that data reflects existing biases, well, the AI will naturally perpetuate those biases. So, what's the impact of this, or the potential impact of this? It can lead to unfair or inaccurate outcomes for students from certain backgrounds, particularly when it comes to personalized learning or grading systems. For example, an AI recommending books based on a student's reading history might not suggest diverse literature if its training data primarily features certain authors. Another example, an AI grading system might unfairly penalize students from certain ethnic backgrounds if the training data reflects historical inequalities in educational achievement. Then, of course, there is reduced human interaction and social skills. What is this problem? Well, over-reliance on AI can diminish the importance of human interaction between teachers and students, potentially impacting social, emotional learning and the development of crucial interpersonal skills. The impact of this could be that the students may feel isolated or disconnected if they rely more on AI tools than on their teachers, which can negatively impact their motivation, engagement, and overall learning experience. An example, AI-powered tutors or online assessment tools may replace the guidance and support that teachers provide, but that could potentially hinder students' social and emotional growth that really will only be possible with human intervention. The third aspect is over-reliance on the technology and a lack of critical thinking, which I think is particularly important. Students may become overly dependent on AI for answers and solutions, and this could potentially impair their critical thinking, problem-solving abilities, which when it comes to the world of work are two vital skills that we need our students to develop. And this means that AI can provide pre-constructed answers, reducing the opportunities for independent thought and creative exploration. And when the students become less able to think from themselves or develop independent problem-solving skills, well, I think that becomes very problematic. If AI systems, for example, dictate the learning process and provide predefined solutions, then students may have fewer chances to develop their own strategies for tackling complex problems. As we all know, there's the hallucination problem, and Gen AI has this potential for errors and misinformation. They're not perfect. They can make mistakes or generate misinformation, and this can lead students receiving incorrect or outdated information, which can distort their understanding of the subject. An example is a student relying on AI for research, and the student may receive inaccurate or biased information, which leads to a flawed understanding of a topic. I think this is going to be particularly difficult, especially when people use that information to actually publish online. So these errors become embedded within what we generally use to know about something. There are ethical concerns, of course. AI implementation in education can raise serious ethical questions about data privacy, algorithmic accountability, and the potential for unintended consequences. And these concerns can lead to mistrust in the AI systems and hinder their effectiveness in education. How can teachers address this negative loop? Well, when it comes to bias mitigation, if you have any way of training the data that you're using, there are tools like Google's Notebook LM, for example, then that allow you to train specific data, train the AI on specific data that you upload. Then if you can ensure that whatever data you train the AI on is diverse and representative and is regularly audited for biases, that will help. Teacher training and support. I think there is a great need for teachers to become equipped with skills so they effectively integrate AI tools into their teaching practices and make sure that human interaction and social emotional learning is included. I think this is key. Teacher development is really key. I think if teachers are left to their own devices and just go and start investigating and using AI, which is it's great to a certain extent, but I think there needs to be a lot more discussion and sharing of good practice between teachers, a lot more teacher training, teacher education to help teachers come to realize the dangers and which may not always be evident. Critical thinking development. I think as teachers, if we can promote activities that encourage independent problem solving, critical analysis, rather than relying solely on AI solutions, then this is good. The temptation, I think, is that AI Gen AI can be used to save time, and with teachers that being prime reason for using AI with teachers, I think the danger is that steps are left out, I think, and if Gen AI is just used to save time, then that could be problematic. Transparency and accountability, of course, is another area which we need to focus upon. Developing clear guidelines for how AI is implemented in education is important. We need to ensure transparency in how the systems work, and we also together need to hold developers accountable for any potential negative impacts, which I think is happening, and these things are being addressed. At least I see some evidence of that. Then there's the focus upon human connection. So creating opportunities for students to interact with teachers and peers, I think, is important, fostering a sense of community and belonging. We can't lose that, whatever comes, I think, from our use of Gen AI. And as teachers, I think we need to carefully consider these issues and how to implement strategies to address them. I think education should and can harness the potential benefits of AI while mitigating the risks of this negative loop. So to go back to the example John provides of differentiation with Gen AI, when using LLMs to provide different text for his learners, John doesn't expect to get what he wants the first time he tries it. He will look critically at the outputs and compare them with the original text to see if the LLM has produced what he knows his learners need. And in this way, he is using his professional judgment to make sure the keywords are there and the LLM hasn't lost any of the important messages the original text provides. I think this exercise of professional judgment to do this, rather than simply relying on the LM to produce a number of different texts, which a teacher could be tempted to just then use in class, is vital, because the LLM does not have the experience that a teacher has, does not know anything other than what John in this example has told it about the context and nature of his learners and what they need. So John next looks at the problem he has encountered when trying this out. The problems he's encountered when trying this out. So he's seen that using Gen AI to produce differentiated text is really useful, but there are problems with the outputs. And this is why you can't just expect your first prompt to provide the result you're looking for. So you need more attempts. John provides examples of prompts in his blog post that have helped him get the LLM to adjust the output when there are certain problems. The problems include the AI losing key content or oversimplifying it, the AI creating inaccuracies when simplifying, the differentiated versions of the text lacking cohesion with each other, or removing figurative language that was important. And John uses this with literature, which can result in metaphors, similes, and other literary devices central to the writing being stripped out. And therefore, this can disrupt the learning objectives and not actually accomplish what he's trying to do. The tone can also be changed to be inappropriately casual or too formal. So your eye needs to be on that as well. John finishes his post with a discussion of the ethical and privacy implications, and although he's an English literature teacher, he provides at the end of the post suggestions relevant to teachers of science and history, and ends with stressing the need for teachers to use Gen AI with purpose, clarity, and context. Anyway, I recommend checking out John's blog, The AI English Teacher. If you search for it, then you'll find it. And if you read this post in more detail, if this sounds of interest to you, I think you'll get a lot from it. I also recommend that you sign up and read the other posts that he's written about Gen AI as a teacher. It all makes for really interesting reading. And the posts have very useful advice and reflections for any teacher, really. So look for the AI English Teacher and you'll find his WordPress blog. So among the other things I have read about AI this week that I found interesting is an article in the New York Times about how the new headache for students who are honest is proving they didn't use artificial intelligence. This article reports, and I quote, that students are resorting to extreme measures to fend off accusations of cheating, including hours-long screen recordings of their homework sessions. This is an interesting development. I think the major problem that we teachers all thought that this emergence of Gen AI was going to cause, and it has to a certain extent, was this idea of giving students the ability to cheat very easily, and that this cheating would be very hard for teachers to detect. And this is the problem here. And of course, what is happening is that the opposite is now happening for students who are actually trying not to use AI, is that they're being accused of using it. So the article goes on to give examples of students at colleges in the US that have received 0 on assignments because their teachers have accused them of cheating using AI tools. The problem, it seems, is that the automatic AI detection tools that have been adopted by some institutions just aren't very accurate. This is my experience of these tools. I remember preparing a workshop for teachers about the use of Gen AI, and I used one of these leading tools of AI detection tools and put in example text that I wrote along with text automatically generated by ChatGPT. And the idea was to show that these tools can be used by teachers if they're suspicious. Unfortunately, the tool said that one of the texts that I'd written was 89% written, possibility of written by Gen AI. And that's when I decided that these tools were not to be trusted, were not reliable. I don't know what your experience is of this, but I'm sure there's a lot of teachers out there that have noticed the same thing. So the article goes on to detail appeals some of the students have made, having to provide timestamps, screenshots and drafts of their work to show that they have actually written the text that they submitted. And this has led to grades being restored, but it seems extreme that students are having to resort to doing this. Of course, nobody can blame teachers for being suspicious and trying to find a solution that doesn't take a lot of time to be able to detect the use of Gen AI for assignments and project work, etc. But statistics provided in the article state that a Pew Research survey last year showed that 26% of students are now saying that they use ChatGPT for schoolwork, which is double the rate of the previous year. Teachers are naturally scrambling for solutions. As a result of students being accused often wrongly of AI use, some are resorting to recording their screens for hours to show them at work, or using word processors that track their keystrokes closely enough to provide a detailed history of edits. When the example student who was accused next submitted an assignment, she uploaded a 93-minute video to YouTube documenting her writing process and said, "I was so frustrated and paranoid that my grade was going to suffer because of something I didn't do," she said, even though this was a real pain. So if you're a teacher that has adopted auto AI detection tools, something I don't recommend you do, but I understand if you're trying to cope with detecting AI use without spending too much time, then please be aware and careful when you accuse students of using Gen AI with their assignments. These tools are not reliable and often misidentify human-generated work as AI-generated. I've always thought that the key, if you can, is changing what you set as the task. If you make it more personalized or local, if that is possible, then it's less likely that students can use Gen AI to cheat. For example, if you want a student to write about a character in a novel, then you could ask them to choose a friend or a family member they know that is either similar to or very different to the character, and to compare and contrast in what ways this is the case. Of course, it depends on the subject and learning objectives. It may not be possible to do this, but as with the AI English teacher's recommendations from his blog post on differentiation, I think if you approach the setting of assignments with purpose, clarity, and context, then it will surely help. This week, I also read an interesting research article about AI in teacher education by a researcher by the name of Angeles Suarez. The paper draws upon semi-structured interviews with 6 student teachers in Sweden who are studying to be teachers of English as a second language and Swedish at secondary and upper secondary schools. It was entitled Partnering with AI in Teacher Education, Using an Automatic Question Detection Tool to Reflect on Classroom Interaction. So the study was published in the Journal of Research on Technology and Education, and it investigates use of this AI-powered tool, which is called QuestionBot, QBot, by student teachers. The study explores how using QBot, which automatically detects questions in classroom recordings, supports reflective practice in teacher education. So this is an interesting use of AI, I think. And the research also considers the student teachers' opinions on partnering with AI for feedback and their ideas for additional AI features to aid future reflection on classroom interaction. What did it reveal? Well, that AI can play a significant role in enhancing teacher reflection and development, primarily by providing tools that help teachers analyze their classroom interactions in detail. One of the key ways AI, specifically QBot in this study, enhances reflection is by promoting noticing and pattern identification. And the student teachers reported that QBot enabled them to notice aspects of their interaction and identify patterns in the questions they asked. And this is interesting, I think, because although this is a role of humans in teacher education, quite often the tutors who observe the classes, etc., don't have enough time, or they are dealing with too many student teachers to be able to give very detailed feedback. So this is an example, I think, of an AI tool being used to supplement the human feedback that they get. So, for example, one student teacher noticed an overuse using this tool of yes/no questions, and another identified the underuse of fact-checking questions, and the AI QBot helped them go beyond simple frequencies and see larger patterns, such as yes/no questions being followed by elaboration questions. The ability to notice classroom interactions is considered a key feature of teaching expertise, and AI tools like QBot seem to be able to make this to give help to the student teachers. Furthermore, the QBot facilitates reflection, and the student teachers noticed through QBot that they were able to reflect on what they did in the classroom and consider alternative scenarios and question formulations, for example. So they were able to reflect on asking more genuine questions and reconsidered longer teaching sequences and pedagogical strategies based on the analysis of the QBot's output. The tool also supports reflection for action, and 4 out of 6 participants said they made future decisions about their teaching based on the reflections prompted by QBot. For instance, one student teacher planned to ask more fact-checking questions in her next lesson to ensure the students were on the same page, and another connected her QBot-based reflection to a mentor's behavior, deciding to ask why more often to encourage student elaboration. And the student teachers believed QBot could help them develop as teachers by reviewing mistakes and identifying areas for further development. So while the potential of AI for enhancing reflection is highlighted, it was also emphasized the importance of human partnerships and expertise, which I was glad to see in this article. And all of the student teachers preferred an AI-human partnership for feedback to be to have AI feedback to be integrated with human feedback rather than relying solely on AI. I'm glad to see that was the case. AI was definitely seen as a helpful tool, assisting with tasks like automatic transcription and question detection that don't really require any human creativity, that were laborious to do, would have been laborious to do. However, the human feedback was highly valued, providing a second perspective, a deeper understanding, and they really appreciated the discussion of all of this, drawing on the experts' experience. Some student teachers felt starting with AI feedback was beneficial because they could then bring their own perspective to the analysis and ask questions and expand the discussion with the human afterwards. The study suggests that collaboration between human experts and AI tools can be interesting and useful for developing a rich, reflective practices and meaningful feedback encounters, especially as dialogue is key to teacher learning. So start with the AI and then move it on to the human instructor or tutor to expand upon it and go into more depth. The student teachers in the study also shared their visions for future AI tools and features that could further enhance reflection on classroom interaction. And those features included automatic detection of gaze and gestures to be able to reflect on teachers' body language, to see the overuse of gestures, and to pick up on students' nonverbal cues indicating willingness or unwillingness to participate, which I think is really interesting. If possible, I think there may be a kind of privacy thing there about students being analysed during the whole of a class, but it would be an interesting thing to examine. Maybe silence. So how much silence, how much teacher talking time, and understand what prompts the silences from students would be something that would be interesting for analysis. Then there was things like voice pitch to reflect on using different pitch levels to engage students or understand why students lose focus, which I think is another really interesting thing as well. So, and code switching was another area where they thought it would be useful. So detecting shifts between languages, which is particularly relevant in contexts like second language teaching. That would be something be interesting for the AI to pick up on and to understand and analyze as well. So in summary, the research study found that AI tools like QBot are shown to be beneficial for teacher reflection and development by enabling detailed noticing of classroom interactions, supporting reflection on past actions, and facilitating forward-looking decisions for future teaching practice. And while the AI was seen to be a valuable assistant, particularly for automatic detection and transcription, there was a strong preference for AI to be used in collaboration with human mentors or peers, which recognizes the indispensable value of human expertise, dialogue, and nuanced understanding in the reflective process. And this idea of nuance that Gen AI cannot produce has come up before in some of my discussions with guests. Future AI tools could expand detection capabilities to a wide range of verbal and non-verbal aspects of classroom discourse, which could further support teacher growth. It's an interesting area, isn't it? So, would you like to be a guest or a host of the show? The best way of doing so is by filling out the form at www.ttradio.org/contact. If you're a host, you've got a lot of freedom to talk about the areas of teaching and learning that are of interest to you. We're encouraged, for example, to bring guests on the show that are actually working as teachers, of course. And I'd love to have more classroom teachers on the show. So if that is you, if you're out there listening back live or to a recording, then I would be very interested in hearing from you. Please get in touch. Of course, you could be a guest on my show or one of the other shows, and you can also just reach out to me wherever you find me online. And if you look for me, you'll find me online through social media, for example. So that is the end of today's Sunday Lunch show. Many thanks to my special guest, Maria de los Angeles Suarez, and to all of you who join me live or who are listening back to the recording. I hope you found this as interesting to listen to as I did talking to Angie. Thanks to all of you for joining us. I hope you'll join me again next week at the same time. And remember, there are lots of other shows on Teachers Talk Radio to listen to during the week. And you can also listen to the many recordings of conversations made by all sorts of interesting people from all over the world about all sorts of different subjects by going to ttr.org and searching on whatever area of teaching and learning that interests you. Please reach out and let me know if you would like to be a guest on the show. And that is all, folks. Bye for now.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.